I was fortunate to coach Tom, and that's I'm also fortunate to be here because that was a long time ago. I tell the girls that I currently coach that I've been involved in track and field since dirt was young, and it's starting to feel more like that's the truth. Some of that dirt was on the track we used to run on. When Tom was in track, we had a cinder track at Marshfield Middle School, and it was not fun to fall on that track. As a hurdler, I really relate to that. But he managed to develop a lot of skill running on that cinder track, and also developed a lot of personal habits that took him a long way. I was a rookie coach myself when I first met Tom, having started the middle school cross-country team in the early 70s, and lo and behold, I had a star in my hands. And Tom immediately became my number one runner, and because of his efforts and that of a few others, made me look good. And I didn't know anything about cross-country, but I learned with them. Tom was just the finest young guy I coached in a long time. He was, and I learned that a lot of what made him who he was came from his parents. I didn't know what track parents were until I met his parents, who just seemed to be there all the time. Wherever we ran, whatever event, they were there. And their determination to support their son, I think, helped him become the kind of man he is. Back then, Marshfield Middle School was a 3-year junior high school, and so I had a chance to coach Tom as a freshman, and also coached track in the spring that same time. And I found out that he wasn't just a distance runner. Cross country back then was 2.5 miles, but in track he, of course, ran the 880, which is a half mile, and eventually wound up being an anchor on our sprint relay team, which said he's got some speed. He had very, very accurate, careful reception of the baton, and he had, through his training for distances like the 880, an ability to finish at the end of a 200 or whatever leg he ran on that relay team. So he made the most of all of his talents. He also, I believe, if my memory serves, which is not as accurate as it once was, I believe I saw him run the high hurdles. I saw him long jump and high jump. I think he even tried pole vaulting, and I don't know if he competed in it or it was an inter-squad meet, but he did that pretty well too. And so he was definitely a versatile athlete. If you follow this through, he also got some of his talent from competing, I think, within his own family. He had 2 brothers, a younger and older one, who were also talented in track and field. He has an older sister who I never really knew, but I imagine she could have been quite an athlete herself because it ran in the family. Tom was in a state meet that is the oldest state track meet in the nation. Wisconsin's track meet, championship track meet started in 1895. And over those 128 years, there have been 13 Marshfield winners in all those years. 13. Several of them were field event. And we've only had, I believe, 3 running event individual winners. Back in 1950, a guy named Jerry Witt won the 100 and the 220. 1959 and 60, a hurdler, Gene Dix, won the 120 high hurdles and the low hurdles 2 years in a row. And then there's Tom. Only one of 3 in all those 128 years. So it goes back a long way. It makes it exceedingly special to be among those. We trained on a dirt track, as I said. When we came to tournament time, we went up the road to Stratford. We were a little embarrassed to have to go to Stratford to train on an all-weather track, but that's where we could get a sense of what it was like to train on an all-weather track before we went off to state and sectionals and so on. Another aspect of the running back then that kind of puts his records in perspective is that they ran an 880-yard event. 880 yards is 15 and a half feet longer than the current distance of 800 meters. So if you figure, well, it doesn't sound like a lot of distance, but at the end of a race like the 800, when you're trying to finish, your stride is slowing, an extra 15 feet can make a difference in time. So he still holds some records that would be competitive today in spite of running a 15-foot longer race than any of them run today. I think that's impressive too. Some other aspects of Tom, I remember he wasn't able to compete, or didn't want to compete on an empty stomach. He had stomach cramps, or if it was the other way, it wouldn't stay down. So his pre-event meal was vanilla wafers. Remember those vanilla wafers, Tom? There was always a box of them on the bus. And I also remember a vanilla stuffing contest where the guys tried to see who could get the most vanilla wafers in their mouth without breaking any. Scared me a little because I could just imagine somebody inhaling one of those wafer chunks and having to do CPR. And that was so long ago that I didn't know how to do it, so, if there was such a thing. So that added an extra interest. The day that Tom won the state meet was one of those really kind of typically stifling hot early June days for track and field championships. Everybody was worried about the middle distance and long distance people overheating and getting heat stroke or something. So I instructed Tom to do a lighter warm-up. Don't go too far, too fast. Once you feel a little warm, stop, do some quick sprints, stretch, and stay in the shade. And he did. When time came for the race, he was in one of the outer lanes, I believe. And when the gun went off, he used his speed to come off that first turn in the lead, continued to expand that lead, and nobody went with him. I think they were all afraid of the heat, and he just went. And he stayed ahead all the way, obviously, for 2 laps, won it. And somebody was up in the stands making a movie, you remember those? With real film. That was me. I don't know why I got to handle that camera, but I never saw the film, but those who did said it moved a lot. There was a lot of bouncing in that because I was up in the stands just jumping up and down and yelling and screaming things that of course he couldn't hear, but it was exciting as could be. Something I think I'm glad I was there for forever. I also want to, before I forget here, thank Dan Aiken, who couldn't be here, for pushing to get Tom involved in this. I always thought he was a deserving candidate, but Dan had the impetus to get it going, and I thank Dan for asking if I would be here for this tonight. I have to say, as one of the nice things you can say about Tom, he wasn't perfect. One of the things, if I remember correctly, he lived about a block away from school. Didn't you live right up on Peach, Tom? Yeah, and with his speed, he could be in school in under a minute. But for some reason, we wound up waiting for him a lot. And I don't remember the meet or the day, but we were all on the bus, and Tom wasn't there, and he wasn't there. And finally, Coach Al Tripp just said, well, let's go. And we did. And I don't remember whether Tom joined us for that meet or not. I suspect that maybe his parents made sure he got there. But so he wasn't perfect. But as an athlete and a kid to coach, he was darn near. He was always willing to work hard and listen, even to a relative rookie coach as myself, and it paid off.
I still actually have a copy of that film, by the way. I did watch it. It's still on is it 8mm? So I'm going to try to get a copy of it. But it was pretty smooth through the most of the film, except at the end, and it really started to bounce. So I know I had great support for you, so thank you. I'm going to just put some glasses on here if I need some reference points. So yes, I'm just extremely honored to be inducted here today, and especially with sharing this experience with my fellow inductees here. Got a chance to talk with them last night, and it's been really nice. It's really nice to be remembered all these years later. You know, we all walk, or sometimes we run, this pathway in life together, and no accomplishment is made, of course, without the help of many others. And as Jim had pointed out, I've had so much support and guidance from so many people, including my parents and my two brothers, who are both very fine track athletes. In fact, my younger brother was faster than I was eventually at the half mile. I had excellent coaches, Jim and Al Tripp, had great fellow team members, and I got a chance to meet and visit with a lot of my competitors through my running years and afterwards. I had just really nice experiences with them. And of course, I had great teachers and friends for support here. I too would also like to extend a special thanks to Dan Aiken for his nomination and his continuing friendship, and then to the committee members who voted me in. It's so great to see these great athletic traditions continuing here in Marshfield. It was my first visit to the school stadium last night, and I was really impressed. So thanks to the great support from all of you community members to help build such a fine facility and continue to support athletic and academic excellence in Marshfield. As Jim mentioned, we had that cinder track, so this is quite a change from those days. And I was going to say that since I received my Medicare card in mail last week, I am entitled to say that back in my day, we ran on cinder tracks, uphill both ways. But yeah, it's so great to see the improved facilities and have them right next to the school. We had to run to track practice to get there from the high school and then run back. Little did I know then that's a good training, and in fact, when I got to Madison, we'd have to go on a 5-mile run before track practice started. So, and then run back afterwards. So, yeah, I've been reflecting a lot on my school days this past week and driving around town. It's kind of put me in a little bit different frame of mind, thinking back at how I felt during those days. And I still consider myself to be a bit lucky with my track accomplishments. In my senior year, 4 of the top 7 fastest half-mile times in the state were from our Valley Conference. So every meet felt like the state track meet. I do say, though, I think I may have had the fastest time. I was just remembering that once I made the very unwise decision northeast of town to run across a cow pasture, and the herd chased me. So I think I broke the maybe world record at that point. So, yeah, so I was a bit obsessed with track too growing up. Of course, growing up in the track family, and then Al Tripp's predecessor's head coach was Dick Hooter, and I was great friends with him, and he lived in my neighborhood. So we had our own track meets. We built our own track gear. We made hurdles out of wood and starting blocks, high jump and pole vault equipment. We're having track meets in our yard and inviting all the neighbor kids. So we spent a lot of time with it. So, but it was great. I had just a wonderful experience with track and field. Of course, there's always a lot of competition and challenges in life, and I was just very fortunate to grow up here in this community. My education and athletic experiences at Marshfield have just been a great advantage to me throughout my adult life. So it's just been a great place to live, great place to grow up. So I'd like to just thank everyone again for this great honor and for your kindness.